Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for Justified City Primeval Season 1, Episode 8. And we are going to just talk all about the storyline that I know everyone is the most excited to talk about right now. Maureen Downey. And what?
All
I'm just
right.
kidding.
Boyd,
Boy,
Boyd,
boy,
Boyd,
boy.
Boyd. Listen, oh my goodness. This whole season has been like
Yeah.
good, but not great. This finale is great. 10 out of 10. I was really hoping that we were going to get like Ava or Win Duffy or Boyd back, but it had to be Boyd. I mean, I was just worried because Walton Goggins is so busy on, Righteous Gemstones, a bunch of other stuff that I was like, can he come back? Can he come back in a way that if they set him up for next season, that he's actually going to be available if there is a season 2 as of recording this? It hasn't been renewed yet, but I feel like with that cliffhanger, how can it not be renewed?
Okay, Walton. I know you're watching this, so let's have a talk here. He did this interview, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and he was basically, of course, he was asked about this,
Of
and he
course.
was just like, I don't really think it's the right time for me right now. And I was just like, okay, Walton,
Listen, what's
you,
he supposed to say? You got me. I'm just going to ruin the ending. Of course, I'm coming back. Like,
yeah,
I really was like, I don't care who it is, Ava, Win,
yeah.
whoever, but it had to be Boyd. Like, now that I've seen him and it was so exciting and crazy, like that whole prison, break basically. I was
Yeah,
just like, oh man, it couldn't have been anybody else.
I freaking loved it. All the entire ending of this.
Who's going to get Raylan out of retirement other than Boyd? Like, it
Yeah,
wasn't going to be Ava. And I mean, Win Duffy is Win Duffy. Like, yeah, Raylan would be like, okay, I get it. Win Duffy's a problem, but, he's not Boyd.
Duffy's just off somewhere in the corner being like, why am I not good enough? But no, okay,
Because it's his Joker. It's
I know.
Boyd.
I know. Okay, we are gonna talk a lot more about Boyd. We have to. We have to. But okay. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are so close to 65,000 subscribers here at the channel. We're so grateful to everyone who has watched with us over
Yes,
the
thank
years.
you.
We want to make that milestone. So just help us be a part of it. We have so much great stuff coming up here too.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more sort of crime drama that's going to be coming up, like Bosch Legacy, that we're going
Yeah.
to be covering in Reacher whenever that comes back. I mean, we're covering now Only Murders. The Walking Dead's going to be starting up
Yeah.
next week with the Daryl Dixon spinoff. I mean, there's all kinds of great stuff coming up here.
Okay.
Okay, we're already like 3 minutes into this
Yeah.
video. We haven't mentioned Clement at all because truly this whole episode
Yeah.
really just revolves around Boyd. Like, it was
Yeah.
such a surprise. I think a lot of us were like, oh, we'd really like it to happen, but like,
Yeah.
how are they going to fit that in where it makes sense?
It's really funny. So here is my emotional journey through this finale. When we get out of Detroit, and it's clear that there's like a decent amount of time left in the finale, at that point I knew something was happening because it was just like, okay, we're not going to spend like the last 10 minutes of this with Raylan just talking to his daughter. Like, nobody was the biggest fan of Willa in the first place. So that's not going to happen. So somebody is going to show up. And I was trying not to get too excited in my head because I didn't want to be let down. I didn't want to have my heart crushed because I was trying to believe in what Walton said, like a dum-dum, that he wasn't going to turn up.
Well, what's he supposed to say?
I know, but it's just I was trying to just give myself a little bit of comfort here as things started to happen. But then the moment they said Kentucky,
Yeah, I was like, it's on. Oh my goodness. And then you get that shot of like the hand with the Bible. I'm like, here we go. He's
yeah,
got his flock. He's ready to preach. It was everything that I could hope for.
first things first, we got a prison break. That's anytime we get a prison break, you're automatically going a little bit up in my entertainment books.
I wasn't sure if he was going to prison break or if it was his time was up. I mean, there's like a 10-year time jump. It's kind of like, okay, well, how long was he supposed to be in prison for? Was it enough time that he could have been up for parole? He seemingly in prison has been doing everything right. And he's been, keeping his hands clean and helping other people. Like, I thought he was just going to be up for parole.
Apparently, this is just more fun.
Yeah,
Like,
no. A guy like Boyd, was he ever going to be up for parole? That's kind of where I thought it was maybe going to go, but
yeah,
that wasn't going to be a strong enough reason we to get Raylan out of retirement. He has retired at the end of this, where he was like, I've had enough.
yeah.
This was it. Like, this was the case that I'm really done with now. I want to spend more time on my own. I want to spend more time with my daughter. I'm going to paint my house and live a quiet life. And that's what I want.
Yeah.
And if it was like, oh, and Boyd has been released on parole, he would have been like, okay, like, what am I going to do with that?
But now he knows that there's something really nefarious that could be going on here. Like, boy, to no one's surprise, has apparently been able to seduce someone else in order to help him. He has still got
He's
that.
a charmer.
He has the. If Walton Goggins shows up over here and it's just like, make me an omelet, I'm like cracking eggs. I'm
What do
putting
you
them.
want in it?
Yeah, I'm putting them in the pan. He's just got that innate charm where he can get people to do whatever it is that he wants out of them. And it seems, based on like that tiny little scene that we've got, that Boyd doesn't really have any intentions of sticking around. But like,
Mhm.
who knows if that's really the case?
Yeah, or it's going to be sort of a situation, where they have to move quickly on it, that the stakes are going to be really high, that, they did, him and his woman sort of talked about going to Mexico or going somewhere else, just leaving. But could there be a race against time to get him, that, maybe Raylan's got to come out of retirement? He's got to come out quickly.
Is Boyd gonna be able to resist going mano a mano with Raylan?
No.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing. I think Boyd wants to win. Like, I think that's as important to him as anything else. And he's just spent all this time in prison. Like, he clearly did not win. And I think he's got to know that the moment he gets out of prison, like, all the alarm bells are going to go off. Like, we see Raylan get the phone call on his boat. Like, there's not a lot of time wasted here before somebody is like, yeah, we kind of need to contact him about this.
Yeah, if anyone's going to be able to catch Boyd, it's Raylan. Raylan and Boyd know each other intimately.
Yeah.
They've been chasing each other and fighting each other for years. It's what makes the original Justified so good, and what some of the problems were this season is Raylan and Boyd both live in the gray area where, sometimes Boyd is more bad and Raylan's more good, and sometimes it's switched where Raylan's is a little more bad and Boyd's a little more good. That's what makes it really interesting, that they are mirrors of themselves, that they will both cross lines that they're not supposed to cross to be able to do what they think is right, and that they believe in their hearts and souls is right. Where this season with Clement's just bad. He doesn't live in any kind of gray area. He's just a bad guy doing bad stuff. So we didn't get really any of that back and forth. That even by the time we got to this standoff at the end where he's trying to pull out a cassette tape, but we see a gun in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Raylan ends up just shooting him right away. There's barely any conversation with them, and Clement's like, why would you do that? Well, you've got a gun in your back pocket. Yeah, you're pulling out a tape, but like, come on.
Yeah.
There just wasn't, I don't know, enough of that. There was no place to meet in the middle that makes it that they're both kind of in this weird gray area spot where they understand each other. They just don't.
No, and they never would. And that's why, sure, it would have been fun to hear another one of Clement Mansell's cover tracks, but at the end of the day,
thank you for saving me from that. Justified.
Yo, you don't want any more of the White Stripes as sung by Clement? No,
good.
I think that really this was the way it was always going to end with Clement. Like, they couldn't do the same thing as with Boyd. I don't think the show really wants to repeat itself. But beyond all of that, like, there was no way to ensure that Clement would ever be locked up. Like, we've already seen this.
Yeah, we had the whole Maureen get her just desserts, which is something going into this finale. I was like, man, I really want to see Maureen go down with this. And, the fact that the book was still there, I was like, okay, yeah, the murder weapon is gone. Toma threw it in the river. It didn't come back. But they still have the book. So I was kind of like, okay, maybe the book is going to be enough to put Clement away. I mean, obviously Clement's dead and it didn't work
Yeah.
out, but then it was kind of like, I saw some interesting theories out there about Boyd and Clement, about the idea that maybe the book was going to put Clement away and Clement was going to end up in the same place as Boyd.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Really
I
interesting.
would have liked to have
That
seen
would have
those two
been
together.
really rich.
Yeah, that would have been one of the best things they could have done with Clement, because this is why my brain, so much of it is just like, talk more about Boyd, talk more about Boyd. And it's because the final showdown with Clement, it was good for what it was, but it also just symbolizes further, like, you couldn't put him and Raylan in the same room for a long period of time without something like this happen. And that's why the big portion of this finale, the Detroit stuff, I just don't find myself caring all that much. Like, I still don't care about any of the stuff with the mob. Like, it's just not interesting to me. Like, yeah, I'm glad that Maureen seemingly is gonna get her just desserts, but I was just like, okay, it's fine. Can we get to the showdown with Clement? And then we do, and then it's over in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, and that really was always going to be the biggest problem. Like the last episode, we had Raylan and Clement sitting at a table together where it was like, okay, well, they can't kill each other because they're in this bar and,
Yeah.
whatever. So that's something where we can get a little bit of screen time with the two of them. But there was just no connection with them, and there was nothing really to talk about except what Clement was doing and that Raylan was chasing him. So even when they got to this final scene where it's like, oh, the mob, they threw him in this room, in the safe room, and they were gonna, eventually go back and just kill him. And Raylan was like, well, I guess I gotta walk away from this. Carolyn was there with the mob. So what am I gonna do? Okay, I gotta walk away from it. Later, Raylan's like, I can't do that. I got to go back and see what happened. Turns out that hot dog guy had come to get his revenge by himself with a broken leg. I was like, that guy that let him do that
Yeah.
and was just like, here's a gun, go take care of it. I'm like, that guy's going to be dropped off a roof by Toma. Someone's going to be like, are you kidding me? He can barely walk and you're going to send him there with Clement, who's fully functional. Like, that just is not going to work out well for him. And it didn't. He's dead.
Toma just needs to hire a whole new organization, because let's just be real
Toma's
here.
dead too. Everybody's dead. I will say this, that watching Clement go through the whole building and just take out pretty much everybody, I was just like, okay, that's exciting.
Okay, Toma, come back from the dead, hire a whole new organization of people. Hot Dog Guy is the dumbest member of any sort of organized crime group I've ever seen.
Oh my
He
goodness.
spent so much time just googly eyeing Sandy over the course of this. What? Okay, that's just the other part. I just don't take anything seriously when it comes to this mob or any of that other stuff.
They didn't feel threatening.
No, my favorite Carolyn moment, though, quite possibly the entire season, is when Clement is just sort of like, are you calling the EMTs? It's like, I'm calling the morgue. And I was just like, yeah.
No, that was a good Carolyn moment. I feel that we all knew that Carolyn was going to end up on the bench, and that story was fine. But really, for me, it was good to see that she actually got what she wanted out of all of this. But really, the moment for me was the same as you. It was her calling the morgue. That was really the throwdown, the hammer.
I really don't know if we're ever going to see Carolyn again or not. I'm going back and forth in my head on all of this, because she did talk a little bit about Miami. She did talk a little bit there could be some sort of hypothetical future. I don't think we're going to see anybody else from Detroit ever again on this franchise, but I think she did care about Raylan. There was something between the two of them, and I think at the very least she might be able to help Raylan with whatever he's going to be up against next.
Yeah, it just feels like this whole season was
Yeah.
to get Raylan to retire. That he ended up in this spot, that he took on this case where normally Raylan is... We've all seen a lot of cop shows and FBI shows where they're like, everybody's bumbling and nobody can catch up to the bad guy and all that. Raylan was never like that. It was always back and forth with Boyd, where sometimes Boyd won, sometimes Raylan won. And
Yeah.
he never felt like he was always 2 steps behind. He just couldn't get there. But this season was all about that. He just couldn't find his footing. He was always a couple steps behind. He didn't know what was going on. He just handed Maureen that gun. And it was like he just wasn't present enough. And so it makes sense now that we ended up at this spot where he was like, you know what? I think I'm just done. Like, I'm gonna put in for early retirement.
Yeah.
And that's where I am with this now.
He's done this a long time. I feel like at this point in his life, he's just like, I've paid my dues. I've given enough. I don't think I can give enough anymore. And we're setting up for what is now. And I hate to say it, but I think it has to be this way. The next season has to be the end. Like, I think this really needs to be the swan song for Raylan, because you can't end the Raylan franchise without Boyd. Like, these two have to go head to head. I don't know how long you can even draw it out at this point, because you already had a final chapter with Raylan and Boyd. So I think this needs one more shot.
This is going to be the interesting thing, seeing everybody's comments about it. Be sure to leave it for us as well, because as much as we've been talking about really wanting to see Boyd come back, and he came back in glorious fashion, I'm curious to see how everybody really feels about it, because before going into this episode, there was a good amount of people that were like, the ending of Justified, the original, was so good and it was put together so well, so satisfying. And I absolutely agree that by bringing Boyd back, that ending is always going to be as good as it was. Like, it was, for a series finale, it was really up there. It was 10 out of 10. It was great. But, can they sort of bring Boyd back and then give another satisfying ending that isn't kind of like a repeat of what they did? Like, they're just going to kill off Boyd? Like, that's not satisfying for me. I don't want to see Boyd die.
It's what's going to make this really, really hard, because they've opened Pandora's box.
They have.
You can't do the same ending that you've done before. You can't just make it repetitive. I'm with you. I do not want to see Boyd die at the end of all of this. But how do you find a way to tie everything together, knowing that you've already done what it is that you've done, and you have to do another season now? You can't end, like, the end of this franchise can't be Boyd getting out, running away, and Raylan getting a phone call.
Yeah, it feels like it has to come back. I mean, they haven't announced anything as of recording this, but I mean, it feels like, how does it not come back? And with them knowing that they had Boyd, I feel like they felt pretty confident that that would be enough to get people really talking about this finale.
Yeah.
As we are.
Yes.
It's so exciting to see him back. But the thing about it is, I'll put my hard hat on the comments. I don't know if anybody feels this way. Is just, we're 18 minutes in. All we've been talking about is Boyd. It makes it feel like the whole rest of this season, as fine as it was. Like, I didn't think it was as bad as everybody else. There was a lot of people that were like, "Oh, this is trash." Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't. But bringing that last scene in with Boyd, seeing him with the Bible, seeing him preaching, seeing him escape, run off with, the guard. Like, I was just like, this is a 10 out of 10 moment here with Boyd. And now it makes everything else that I watched, where I thought it was fairly good, less than fairly good, where I'm just like, it could have been this all season, but instead it was this.
Yeah.
Not bad, but like, now it's less than good, because it could have been this.
I know, and it's the real hard thing about comparisons, right? And it's just that we've all seen Justified at its peak. We're now closer to seeing Justified at its peak. I mean, we'll see if anybody else comes back. Like, Ava's still out there. Like, there's still a chance we see some other people as well. Mm-hmm. Let's just hope that there's some more news on this soon, and the writers and actors get paid what they deserve, so that we can actually get some announcements here.
Absolutely. My biggest hope for the next season, if there is a next season, no offense to the actors playing the daughter, but do not bring back the daughter. I don't want to see Raylan going up against Boyd and having the daughter pull him away from work, because that was definitely the biggest problem with this season. Is I tuned in to watch Raylan cook. I wanted to see him work.
Yeah.
I always really liked that he wasn't bumbling, that he was really smart, that he was able to think outside the box and get ahead of whoever he was chasing. Normally Boyd, sometimes Ava, sometimes Winn Duffy, but
Yeah.
whatever. He was always on it. And we had 3 episodes out of 8 episodes where his daughter was just like, "What about me? You need to be with me. Don't take that call for work. It's got to be about me." And it was even like that with them on the boat where the phone call comes in. She's like, "Oh, do you have to get that?" No, I won't get that. It's like, okay, we get it. She needs to not be in the next season. Let him fight Boyd.
I think it's more than fine if she's not, with the idea and the premise now of we know this is his last stand. I think us knowing that, okay, once he gets Boyd taken care of, he's going to go and retire. We can feel okay about not seeing his daughter because this is also that he can have the rest of his life. And
Yeah.
that works for me. This ending really works for me. But okay, we'll turn this over to you guys, but be sure to hit that subscribe button and help us get to that 65,000 milestone. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you to our patrons for your support, and we will see you here next time.